Let me start this off by saying that I love PokeMMO. As my channel grows, it becomes increasingly more painful for me to make negative videos about the game like this, because I still believe that PokeMMO has such amazing potential. However, I can't ignore the fact that I've got some sour feelings about the way the game has been headed, and I think a lot of the community shares the same general sentiment as me. PokeMMO's economy has taken the most major sink it's ever had during the 2025 Halloween event, and I personally believe that there's been a ton of missteps and questionable decisions by the developers that have gotten us to this point. Trust in the creators of the game is at an all-time low, and I think they seriously need to lock it in for the Christmas event, as it's evident by the market and overall player opinions that this Halloween event was not a huge success. I'd like to say, first of all, that my channel is mainly centered around the marketplace, trading, and shiny hunting. I can't speak on behalf of the PvP community, as I have hardly any experience with that stuff. The market affects every single player in some way, however, as you have to engage with it when you're new in order to get somewhere in the game. Whether you're into PvP, shiny hunting, or making money, you will be impacted by the way things have been handled. The economy is built up on trust and player satisfaction, and when that goes down, so does the market. There was already a lot of growing distaste for the way things were going leading up to the Halloween event. I think the first real cracks in the glass came from the developers making the decision to delay the Shiny War. The Shiny War is a game-wide shiny hunting competition that requires an unhealthy amount of playtime along with an absurd amount of in-game wealth. In order to win, a lot of the top competitors took time off work or shifted their schedules around so they could get the maximum amount of playtime. So many people question this decision to delay. What on earth could they need to delay the event for? What could they possibly be cooking up? The developers eventually clarified that they were planning to release an update in the near future with several changes that would impact the event. The most notable is an overhaul of wild encounters and hordes, which places a greater emphasis on the season, time of day, and variety of phase hordes, which can be encountered alongside desirable hunts. This also included a new shiny hunting method and quality of life improvements such as an in-game encounter counter. It was already extremely suspicious that they wanted to make meta changes to shiny hunting right before the game-wide shiny hunting event, but the community at large rioted, and it didn't take long for them to revert the decision to delay the war. Q, one of the head admins of the game, wrote in a post that the encounter changes would be scheduled for August/September instead, and that they wanted to finish up stuff like adding the VGC game mode as another reason why they wanted to delay the event. The community was happy that the war was back on at the intended time, and even had something to look forward to, with a slight time frame of August/September for the horde changes, which is something that they've really been teasing us for a while now. And also a new method entirely? That sounds amazing. July 10th, 2025, the Shiny War update drops, and we finally get to see the real reason why the delay was attempted. Not mentioned anywhere as a reason for why they had to delay the war, the developers made the absolutely diabolical decision to add egg incubators. The system that they decided to work on the hardest was a complete overhaul to the speed of egg shiny hunting, which encourage you to spend as much money as possible in a limited amount of time. If you are a serious competitor in Shiny Wars, egg hunting is an unavoidable meta. You can now pay extra money to hatch 15 eggs at once instead of 5. The speed at which this changed egg hunting was insanity. Here's some calculations from one of the greatest egg hunters of all time, Mitch. They essentially pulled the rug on every single person who was saving up yen for this war. And an equally cooked addition was Chum Buckets, an RP-only, non-farmable item that doubled the speed of fishing shiny hunts. So I personally think that fishing hunts were too slow before, but it doesn't take a genius to see that the only reason that they added these into the game was because incubators were so egregiously broken that it would have been more time efficient to egg hunt a core fish than to fish for it. And let me also just say that, in general, I think that they could definitely take down the time that it takes to get to an egg shiny. Because right now, for free-to-play players, nobody fucking does it. I mean, in order to, even get to that point, you have to have so many alts that are, either farming dittos to self-sustain, or so many alts to farm money for yourself, or you're flipping. That's literally the only way you can pay for this. So am I pissed off about, the rate that they changed shiny hunting in general? No, I'm pissed off at the way that they tried to add this. I guess what my point here is that the incubators didn't change a free-to-play player's inability to egg hunt. They just made it so you could spend more money faster, which is optimal from a developer standpoint, as they could extract more money from the player base in a short amount of time. And by them balancing the event around egg hunting instead of cheaper methods like singling, it made it unavoidable for serious competitors. After they added these, it was either you planned to spend 3 times the amount you were originally going to on Shiny Wars, or you didn't win. It goes without saying that most of the community was absolutely gutted by this shameless, greedy move. I've never seen the community's trust in the developers be that low, not to mention they pushed out the update in an extremely buggy state on top of all of that. Petrowski, the game's biggest content creator, called them out on this, and they decided to partially revert the egg incubators, taking out the temporary ones but still allowing the permanent ones. I made a video about this topic while it was going on, and it got a lot of attention. If you want a glimpse into how bleak we thought the future of this game was going to be at that time, please go take a look. Anyways, as the Shiny Wars event goes on, players eventually kind of get used to the shiny hunting changes. The wealth gap in the game continues to widen as shiny hunting gets more and more expensive seemingly with every update, and the prices of IVs on Pokemon fall into the gutter, and more people have even just decided to run alt account strategies to try and get ahead. I think that as a community at this time, we were all just praying that they would do something about the economy and the direction that it was headed in. We were all looking forward to the new shiny hunting method that was due to come in August and September. Also, as well as other things like maybe like a box trading update, or like them somehow syncing the alphas, because at this time, there were people just mass hunting alphas. It was ridiculous. Like, 4x31 prices of Pokemon were like down to 150k. Everything was in the gutter. So, surely after that whole debacle with delaying Shiny War and the incubators, they'd work extra hard to try and win some of the community trust back. At least that's what we thought. August and September fly by, and end up being kind of dead points in the game's history. There is a lot of distaste for the game at this point. The economy is falling rapidly. The prices of legendaries, a good new player moneymaker, are on a decline. The prices of the egg groups and the Pokemon with good stats are plummeting as more wealthy players dump statted alphas onto the market after mass breeding them for shiny chances. Shinies in groups like Chaos and Field are obliterated in price. This was a mix of players listing their shinies that they caught during the Shiny War, as well as some mass farming Pokemon like Stunfisk and Ditto for profit. People at this point were doing basically anything they could to get any type of money they can, since they believed that Halloween would have a lot of crazy changes. I was personally seeing people like alpha catching on like 50 accounts, or there was also strategies where you would park up your character at the Striation Gym and just a ton of Unova accounts so you could beat it as many times as possible in an hour. There was people were coming up with some crazy ideas to try and make as much yen as possible for this Halloween event. And it seems as if the only thing that was somewhat holding well was the price of RP vouchers, which usually rise during events depending on what they add. It's clear to most of the community at this point that we desperately needed syncs for a lot of the stuff just to keep this game's economy healthy. October 10th, the Power of Community thread is made by Alice A, and is covered all the time by Petrowski as more and more players get fed up with the state of the game. It rapidly starts getting a lot of traction, so much so that the developer queue even starts giving some community insight by replying to the forums thread a ton of times. I think reading some of this stuff is genuinely pretty interesting, and there is a lot of boring things here that would take up developers' time, like server maintenance. Like, sure, whatever, I understand that there's lame shit that takes up development time, but I think we need to kind of empathize with the players here who feel betrayed by the economy's direction and the decisions like incubators and the war delay. There's trust there that really needs to be earned back by the developers, and I think overall that we've been pretty patient and had the right to be angry at this point, considering that they even gave us a time period for the new shiny hunting method and encounter changes, and also that they were only mentioned to us originally because of our community's disappointment in the delay. I really think they owed it to us to get that update out in a timely fashion, or for at least someone to come out and say anything. But no, we got nothing, and that's why these types of forum threads get made. It's because the community is frustrated. But hey, you know what? At least Q did start replying to this forums thread with some explanations. It only took them missing the entire fucking time frame they gave us, but you know what? Whatever. Let's see what he has to say. Some of Q's messages here threw up some red flags for a lot of players. He's kind of got this weird sass to every forum post he makes. So the guy literally comes out of the gate with, "Thanks for your opinions, folks. However, I'm going to continue making the video game." Then, after writing about some of the reasons why it's taking a while to finish developer projects, he writes, "And sorry, I'm not the type to write a blog post about the week I spent figuring out which data center has the best links to CN2 or GIA. Ooh. Like, my brother in Christ, you literally just wrote a dev blog post. Is it really that hard? And then later on in a different post, he tries to clarify why they hate giving ETAs, explaining, it's because we're bad at keeping them. Not everything we make works out, and I don't need a reminder on a daily basis of players telling me I suck. Does he really think we're just hating for no reason here or something? Like, the players have a legitimate reason to be upset. It's not like we're just trying to be obtuse and act like the devs suck. We're mad because we fucking love this game. We want to hear about the shit that they're working on, and when they add stupid shit like incubators, free-to-play nerfs, or refuse to do anything about the market, it takes away the players' trust. That's why forum threads like this get made in the first place. It would clear up so much of this drama if they did just make a forum post every week, going over what the hell they're even planning to do. Like, I don't understand why he's got to hit us with this weird tone. Like, it's crazy to me. It really is. That being said, I am not defending the people who blindly shit on the devs for every decision they make. I will say that the community was getting more and more toxic, but I think we have to look back and try to find the reason for this. Over the past few months, players just felt lied to, and I think that's why shit was getting so tense leading up to the Halloween event of 2025. What's absolutely incredible about this community and why I love it so much is that after all of that, we still tried to have a positive outlook. Stuff like, maybe the shiny hunting method is coming with Halloween. Or, hey, we actually got some feedback from the devs. That's pretty cool. Surely they must have gone through and looked at some of the forums threads or, looked at our concerns. Also, playing that PTS for this event was one of the most fun times I've ever had on PokeMMO. And making theories about all the cool things that we might be getting, it was awesome. Little did we know what was actually in store for us. What followed with the 2025 Halloween event is the greatest economic crash I've ever personally seen in the game. The first part of the update, the two main things that we received as a community were the Halloween Random Battles minigame and VGC. There was no new shiny hunting method, no horde changes, no new raids, and they didn't even change how Pumpkin worked at all. And there were no changes to how the economy was handled. The same strategy from the last few years of the event was the exact same, causing the meta Pokemon to reach new lows. They also slapped an enormous nerf onto Elite Four reruns, making it so you can no longer trick a Choice Scarf to the enemy. This also had an effect on red rebattles, and people who saw this change, who have spent ages making tons of alts for E4, dumped all of their Pokemon onto the market. This killed entire sections of the economy, and it still hasn't recovered. To give you some examples of how hard the economy crashed, 5x Adamant Water A is now 450k. Jirachi is now sub 3 million. Comp Exca, with hidden ability, is now as low as 650k. And Metagross 5x Jolly is now 400k, sometimes even as low as 350. RP also crashed to a new low of 1.6 million. Due to players panic selling and losing faith in the economy and the developers. One of the only new things that they actually added, the Mysterious Dust Balls, has also obliterated the prices of Flying and Field IVs, two of the most common egg groups that new players used to farm for money. About a week into the event, they dropped another part to the update. Player morale was in the trenches at this point, so the fact that we were getting anything was great. It turned out to be a brand new Cresselia raid, as well as a few new items for defeating Darkrai. The Cresselia fight was pretty dope, but at the same time, they snuck in a couple more nerfs that would affect free-to-play money making. They decided to nerf the striation method, a gym rerun strategy where you would park a ton of accounts in the gym in striation and then efficiently grind those 3 trainers over and over. They also made the Control plus A text speed slower, which is an overall nerf to the speed of efficient gameplay, similar to the removal of strings, which a lot of players were upset about. The prices of gym rerun Pokemon absolutely plummeted after this, as lots of players interpreted this forum post as them destroying gym reruns in the same fashion they just did with E4. Some of them have recovered a little bit in the last few days, but I think the sheer amount of panic selling that was going on is a strong indicator of players' feelings towards these developers' decisions. So now here we are, in the present day. Some Pokemon have gotten a short-term boost in price due to the Cresselia raid as rich players try to get the first few completions, but overall the market is extremely down. Pumpkin not getting any changes made it so it isn't worth it to farm it for money, unless you have a minimum of 5 separate devices. E4 reruns got completely overhauled, turning off a lot of players from even doing them anymore. Certain gym rerun / trainer rerun strategies got nerfed. I'm gonna be honest, the striation was pretty cheesy anyway, but the people were just already fed up with these types of changes, so it makes sense why people would be mad. And there's also no new raids apart from Cresselia. And this update has overall made it more annoying for free-to-play players to get anywhere. What I'm hearing from a lot of players this year is that the best form of money making is actually taking multiple accounts and going into the random battles mode and trying to win battles on all of them simultaneously. Apparently, that's the best money making. I don't think anyone would have possibly conceived that anything near that would have been the meta for the Halloween event. Let's say for a moment that you do actually agree that E4 deserved the nerf and that the scarf trick strategy was super cheesy. I think they should have still waited to nerf it until they built some of the player trust back. The fact that we only got two major changes in this event, the Cresselia raid and VGC, both of which aren't tied to the Halloween event at all, is super disappointing to me. This event, objectively, was a flop. The price of RP being so low disincentivizes people from spending money on the game, hurting their business. I think all of these problems and general player toxicity about these topics comes from an overall just lack of trust in the developers, from a history of non-communication and questionable updates. I really hope Christmas is better. At the end of the day, I think players would be a whole lot less upset by the nerfs if the content we were also getting felt acceptable. If we had a reworked Pumpkin with a good yield, or new raids, and changes that would help strengthen the economy, people would be a whole lot less pissed about their grinding methods getting messed with. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Player trust is a topic that I've wanted to talk about for a long time, and I was really hoping that they'd knock it out of the park with this Halloween event. I hope they put in some serious consideration into how they approach nerfs and content for the new updates this Christmas. Please let me know in the comments what you think about what they've added so far. And like always, guys, take care.
Now everyone who's holding our peace